In many parts of the country, the housing market is frozen as tariffs, a shaky economy, and conflict in the Middle East keep some potential buyers on the sidelines.
Housing market is in full collapse.
Analysts say there's a ticking time bomb in housing. A big increase in the number of mortgage delinquencies loom.
Number of households that will be required to be evicted is a tidal wave.
Canada is stunned after families lose their homes and the housing crisis explodes. Over 1.15 million mortgages are renewing in 2026.
Your support is free, but priceless. Subscribe to Canada Scope. Housing market pressure is hitting Canada hard. Families across the country are watching the housing crisis grow bigger, louder, and more stressful by the month. More than 1.15 million mortgages are expected to renew in 2026. And for many homeowners, that means higher payments, landing right when property values are already sliding in major cities. In some areas, prices have reportedly dropped by as much as 24% to 30%. And that kind of fall is not something people can just brush off like it is nothing. What we are seeing right now feels like pressure building across every corner of the housing system. Families who once believed their home was their safest investment are now facing hard choices. Some are struggling with payments. Some are trying to sell before things get worse. Others are finding out their property may not be worth what they still owe on it. That is a brutal position to be in. And the most shocking part is that this does not feel like one isolated problem. It feels like a pattern. More listings, more price cuts, more families under pressure, more homes sitting on the market longer than expected. In Toronto and Vancouver, certain parts of the market have already taken a major hit. Toronto condos alone have reportedly dropped around 25% in some areas. That is not a tiny market cooldown. That is years of gains getting wiped away. When you adjust for inflation, some prices are now being compared to levels from 2016.
I want to talk about the Canadian housing market today because it is officially broken.
Then came the President Trump's tariffs and the economic uncertainty, and that has delayed the recovery and maybe have pushed it forward by a year or more. So the consensus amongst economists is that if the economic turmoil somehow disappears and there's some stability that returns, and at the same time we see a decline in mortgage rates so people's affordability improves.
Thousands of condos are left unsold. The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation says about 2,500 new condos are sitting empty in Metro Vancouver. That's double what it was last year.
And we've seen massive volatility in bond yields because of the conflict going on in the Middle East.
It'll be painful.
So you can see in their forecast here to the right that actually the light green is the revised forecast, and the December forecast, I mean, they still think that sales are going to be up year over year in Q2 of 2026
or 2017. That means homeowners who bought during the peak may be looking at values that feel like they have been dragged backwards nearly a decade. And still, some people try to make it sound calm. They say the market is stabilizing, but how does that feel stable to a family selling at a major loss? How does that feel stable to someone renewing a mortgage at a much higher payment while their home value is falling? The damage is not only hitting regular working families either. Even luxury properties are feeling the squeeze. High-end homes listed for millions are sitting longer, cutting prices, or facing serious trouble. That sends a loud message. When expensive properties start struggling too, it shows the pressure is moving through the whole market, not just one group of buyers. And this is where the pricing gets even harder to understand. In some places outside Canada, buyers can find properties with land, multiple units, and rental income potential for far less than the price of one luxury home in Vancouver. Meanwhile, some Canadian buyers are paying huge money for properties that may not bring in any income at all. That gap makes people question how these prices ever got this stretched in the first place. The bigger concern is what happens next. If mortgage renewals keep hitting households while prices stay weak, more people could be forced to sell into a market that already feels shaky. That creates a tough cycle. More sellers come in, buyers get nervous, prices face more pressure, and families feel trapped between higher costs and lower values. This is why people are paying attention now. The housing market is not just about numbers on a chart. It is about real families, real payments, real stress, and real homes. And when that pressure spreads, it can shake confidence fast. I think the biggest problem is not just the price drop. It is what people were taught to believe for years.
The Canadian economy, already contending with inflation, tariffs, and a cost of living crisis, is also watching a steady and ongoing slump in the housing market.
According to the Housing Market Outlook released today by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, new home construction is set to decline through 2028 as developers face high costs, weaker demand, and more unsold homes.
Several factors that are spelling out a slower market for the next several years.
While new condo construction is expected to remain high in Montreal, the CMHC predicts a dismal condo market in both Vancouver and Toronto, where inventory is high and sales are weak.
Canadians were told over and over again that housing always goes up. They were told their home was their biggest asset, their safety net, their future, and their ticket to financial freedom. And for a long time, it looked true. Prices kept climbing, people kept borrowing, and homeowners started treating their houses like personal banks. They used home equity lines of credit. They refinanced again and again. They pulled money out for renovations, cars, bills, investments, and sometimes just to keep up with everyday life. And while prices were rising, it all looked smart, it looked normal, it looked like easy wealth. But now that idea is cracking fast, because when home prices fall, the whole story changes. People do not just lose value on paper, they lose the financial image they built around that value. That wealth they thought was locked into their home can disappear fast when the market turns. And once that happens, everything built on top of it starts shaking too. That is why this moment feels so serious. Some families are not only dealing with lower home values, they are also carrying debt that was tied to the old price of the house. So when the property drops, the debt does not magically drop with it. The payments are still there, the loan is still there, the pressure is still there, and then comes the part that could hit even harder, the mortgage reset. In 2026 alone, around 1.15 million mortgages are expected to renew. That is not a small wave. That is a massive number of households facing a very different financial world than the one they entered during the pandemic. Back then, interest rates were extremely low. Borrowing felt cheap. Monthly payments looked manageable. People stretched themselves because they believed prices would keep rising, and because they feared they would never get another chance to buy. But now the math has changed completely. When those mortgages renew at higher rates, payments can jump hard for families already living close to the edge.
You have to remember that they've actually said here that part of this forecast takes into account interest rates not changing, which completely contradicts what interest rate prediction markets are actually saying is going to happen. And as we're going to get into, also, more Canadians than ever are taking on variable rate mortgages.
Analysts say there's a ticking time bomb in housing.
I have to basically beg people to come and just even look at the house.
Even a few $100s more each month can be painful, but for some, the increase could be much bigger. That means harder choices, tighter budgets, missed payments, forced sales, and in the worst cases, losing the home altogether. And the warning signs are already flashing. Mortgage delinquencies are rising across Canada. In Ontario, the increase has been even sharper. Some people will say the numbers are still low compared to past crises, but that does not mean people should relax. The important part is the speed of the change. When pressure starts rising quickly, it can spread before people fully understand how bad it is getting. The most exposed are the people who bought recently, especially first-time buyers who entered the market during the pandemic peak. These families stretched everything just to get in. They took on huge debt because they thought buying was their only way to protect their future. They were told waiting was risky. They were told prices would only get worse. Now many of them are facing a brutal new reality. Higher payments, lower home values, less room to refinance, fewer buyers if they need to sell, and no easy exit. That is a tough spot to be in because selling may mean taking a loss, but staying may mean carrying payments that keep getting harder. Either way, families feel trapped. And here is the part people do not talk about enough. Supply is going up, but it is not solving the crisis. Canada had roughly 259,000 to 260,000 housing starts in 2025, which sounds like progress. But affordability is still broken, because the gap is much bigger than one good year of construction can fix. Canada is estimated to need millions of additional homes by 2030 to restore balance. So even when more homes are being built, it still may not be enough to make housing affordable for regular people. That is the strange part. We can have more construction and still have a broken market. At the same time, unsold inventory is rising in some areas. In Vancouver, completed but unsold units have reportedly doubled to around 2,500. That sends a clear message. Demand is weakening. People either cannot afford to buy or they are choosing not to because they fear prices could fall further. And when buyers step back, sellers get nervous. When sellers get nervous, prices get cut. When prices get cut, confidence drops even more. That is how a housing slowdown can turn into something much deeper. Then there is the human side, and this is where it gets really heavy. In Ontario alone,
you see a bit of struggle in the markets in their march towards recovery. Right next door to British Columbia, Alberta is showing a little bit better signs. So it's not just one market, it's a collection of markets, and they are all in a different place in the recovery cycle.
The general climate environment of uncertainty that has been brought about by the trade tensions and the uncertainty going forward has definitely impacted housing investment.
I mean, it's crazy when you really think about what's going on, but it just keeps going down. And you can see now down 2025, this is inflation adjusted for the CPI, you're down at 2016, 2017 prices. So the Canadian housing market is in a lost decade. This is a foreclosure for just under $1 million. I mean, is this really what $1 million gets you in BC? It's just literally a townhouse, and that's what you're getting for $1 million. I mean, I can't believe it, but the Greater Vancouver area, the prices are just still insane.
A matter of these massive global disasters, really, that continue to unfold.
This is another loss. This is a 17% loss, but it's the speed again. This is a 17% loss in 1 year. Canadian real estate crash. We're going to get into some of these unbelievable losses. One loss is over 80%.
Tens of thousands of people are at risk of homelessness in 2026. Across Canada, unsheltered homelessness has reportedly risen sharply between 2020 and 2024. So this is not just about charts, mortgages, or real estate headlines. This is about families, workers, renters, seniors, young buyers, and people who are one bad month away from crisis. That is why this does not feel like a normal housing cycle. It feels like a social crisis hiding inside an economic one. When I step back and look at the full picture, I do not see a clean correction. I see prices falling, debt staying high, payments rising, inventory shifting, and families getting squeezed from every side. And the most unsettling part is that the biggest mortgage renewal wave has not fully hit yet. Those 1.15 million renewals are still coming. That pressure is still moving through the system. So no, this does not feel over. It feels like the next stage is only beginning, and that is when the whole situation stops looking like just a housing downturn and starts looking honestly absurd. Because when I look at some of these losses, I honestly do not even know what to call them anymore. In Alberta, some properties have reportedly dropped around 36% in just 2 years. 2 years. That is not a calm market cycle. That is the kind of drop that makes people stop and ask how things got this far. And then, on top of losing value, some owners are still paying more than $1,000 a month in condo fees. That sounds wild when you really think about it. You are watching your property value slide, but you are still paying a huge monthly fee just to keep the building running. It almost feels like paying premium rent to a place you already bought. That is not the dream people were sold. And then you go to Ontario, and somehow it gets even more shocking. A home bought for around $1.45 million in 2022 is now reportedly selling for around $870,000. That is a massive hit before you even talk about inflation, taxes, closing costs, interest payments, and everything else that comes with owning a home. When you add all of that together, the real loss can feel absolutely brutal. This is not some slow decline over 5 or 10 years.
Condo construction is expected to be especially weak. The CMHC report also underscores the impact elevated unemployment, modest income growth, and slowing population growth are having on the housing market.
Long term, however, the lack of housing starts is at one point going to show its impact, maybe in a few years, because I know starting next year, I think the housing starts, are going to really start to dramatically taper off.
Canadian real estate crash. We're going to get into some of these unbelievable losses. One loss is over 80%. I mean, it's completely crazy. Foreclosure.
Bond yields are on the rise because there's so much geopolitical uncertainty right now, certainly due to the war in Iran.
First-time buyers may be hesitating because of those higher financing costs.
They don't have any built-up equity from the sale of an existing home. So anytime there's upward movement among fixed mortgage rates, they're very sensitive to that.
Some places are seeing sharp drops in a single year. That kind of fall gives people almost no time to react. 1 month, they think they have equity. The next month, they are staring at numbers that make their whole financial plan look shaky. And the hardest part is that many of these buyers were not trying to get rich overnight. They were regular people trying to get into the market. They listened to the advice everyone gave them. Buy early, get in before it is too late, build equity, start small, move up later, but now some of them are sitting there watching that plan fall apart right in front of them. This is where condos deserve a serious conversation. I really believe many condos have turned into a financial trap for some buyers. That may sound harsh, but look at the numbers. Maintenance fees can range from a few $100s to over $1,000 a month. And what are people getting in return? A small unit, limited space, strict rules, rising costs, and in some cases, falling value. For years, condos were sold as the affordable entry point. That was the message. Start with a condo, build equity, then move into something bigger later. But now people are asking a very fair question. Affordable for who? Because if someone is paying a mortgage, condo fees, property taxes, insurance, utilities and special assessments, while the property value is dropping, how is that still an entry point? For some people, it does not feel like a stepping stone anymore. It feels like quicksand, and even developers are starting to feel the pressure. Condo pre-sales have slowed down hard. Projects that once might have sold out fast are now struggling to attract buyers. Inventory is piling up. In Vancouver, completed but unsold units have reportedly doubled to around 2,500. That is a lot of empty homes in a country that keeps saying there is a housing shortage. And that is the part confusing so many people. Canada is building more. In 2025, the country had around 260,000 housing starts, which sounds like progress. On paper, that should help. More homes should mean more options. More options should mean better affordability. But the problem is much deeper than 1 year of building can fix. Canada still needs millions more homes by 2030 to restore balance. So even when construction rises, the gap is still huge. That means regular people can look around and see cranes in the sky, but still feel like nothing is becoming affordable. At the same time, buyers are pulling back. Some cannot qualify. Some are scared to buy while prices are falling. Some are waiting because they think better deals may come later. And when buyers hesitate,
as sales drop, so do prices. The national benchmark price is 20% lower than it was in 2022, sitting at about $664,000.
The inventory here is full.
The slow market may be frustrating for sellers, but this real estate agent says it gives buyers more room to negotiate.
There's a lot of price cuts, especially because there's so much inventory.
Vandita Nijjar and Saurav Sofat have been renting for 4 years.
The situation in 2023 and 2024, the prices are very high, like sky high. So that time it was not a good time.
Now they're desperate to buy a home of their own.
I would say the detached market is come down drastically. Whenever we'll see like any good deal, we will definitely go for it.
Even now, even with the higher mortgage rates, you're looking at 4.5%, and they are 1/3 of the mortgage rates in the 1989 or early 90s. So
this is if interest rates don't change, which is actually not the case. What the prediction markets are saying is going to happen. Prediction markets have changed slightly. Now they're only predicting one interest rate hike of 25 basis points that is going to come in October. Previously, it was going to be September and December.
And in Toronto, the CMHC says the weakening condo market appears to have similarities to the crash of the early 90s. Escalating costs from material and labor are some of the factors behind this market stall.
Many cities in Quebec and Atlantic Canada are still seeing sales and price gains. Ontario, BC, and parts of Alberta are in a downturn.
The latest hurdle for buyers, higher fixed mortgage rates, which are based on the bond market, not the Bank of Canada's key lending rate.
Sellers get nervous. When sellers get nervous, prices get cut. And when prices get cut, confidence takes another hit. That cycle can get ugly fast, but the human side is what makes this bigger than real estate. In Ontario alone, around 85,000 people are reportedly at risk of homelessness in 2026. These are not just numbers. These are families, renters, workers, seniors, young people, and homeowners who may be one bad month away from losing stability. And then you have renovictions, where people can be pushed out when buildings are renovated and rents rise. For those families, the market is not some investment debate. It is their life. It is where they sleep. It is where their kids grow up. It is their safety. Across Canada, unsheltered homelessness has reportedly surged since 2020. That means this is no longer just a housing problem. It is becoming a public health crisis, a financial crisis, and a social crisis all at once. And no market feels completely safe anymore. Different regions have different risks, but the pressure is everywhere. Alberta has sharp drops. Ontario has painful losses. Vancouver has unsold inventory. Condo buyers are getting squeezed by fees. Developers are slowing down. Families are struggling to qualify. Renters are getting pushed harder and harder. When I put all of this together, it does not feel like a normal downturn anymore. It feels like a system under serious strain. Prices are falling in some areas by huge amounts. Some buyers are facing losses that feel impossible to recover from. Condos are turning from affordable starter homes into expensive monthly burdens. And somehow, even with hundreds of thousands of homes being built, Canada still does not have enough housing where people actually need it. So I have to ask the question, who really benefited from this system? Because for a lot of regular people, the dream did not just fade away. It got pulled out from under them. They did what they were told. They saved, borrowed, bought, waited, and believed. But now many are left with higher payments, lower values, rising fees, and fewer options. And if this pressure keeps building, Canada may have to face a hard truth. Housing cannot stay broken forever without breaking people too. What do you think? Is this just a painful correction? Or is Canada's housing system heading into something much bigger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you want more honest breakdowns like this, and subscribe to Canada Scope channel for more updates on what is really happening across Canada.